cannabis, do you know galactically where it originated from?
Yeah. At least with what I track back, not saying I know everything. So there's like in even on the planet when it first got here, it's not as strong as what it was created as now. So the strains on this planet have become incredibly overpowered. So then they're taken off world as well and used in commerce and trade and to multiple realms. Light and dark both use it for various activities, and there's technology within it greatly, which I'll list.
Wait, Sean, can I stop you for a second? Off-world trading, commerce? I think that's pretty interesting. So there are species that will come here and somehow acquire cannabis onto their ships and then take it?
Namaste, Galactic family. Welcome back to my channel, Indigo Angel. Come on into this dimension. Guys, I have a very special update for you today, diving in a little bit deeper and a little bit more extensive into some topics that we're going to get into, such as the recent solar activity and how this relates to Mandela effects. I have the Mandela effect professional, the one who knows it all about this, Mr. Chris Anatra, Chris the Quantum Businessman. You may have seen him on YouTube. He's so awesome. So he's going to explain all of this to us. I'm going to be diving in with these guys today about the dark magical kingdom webbing just a little bit more. We're going to be going into Stargate portals and into the galactic origins of cannabis. 420 special for you guys today. Also with Mr. Sean Bond. He's amazing. He's a psychic healer. So I will let these guys go ahead and introduce themselves to you so you can get to know them a little bit more. And whoever would like to go first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christopher Anatra. You may know me as the Quantum Businessman. So I have a channel on YouTube where I make videos about Mandela effects and expanding consciousness and the holographic reality that's around us. And just having a lot of fun with especially this crew here today. It should be very, very interesting. And we're going to talk about a lot of subjects. Some things are going to be fun, and I think some things are going to be diving in pretty deep. But for those of you that don't know me at all, I own a computer software company for food distribution. It's called The Last Mile of the Supply Chain. It's about getting food from food warehouses to restaurants and grocery stores and that type of thing. And then around 2017, I started going through my own little personal awakening experience, went through that whole dark night process. And here I am now in front of YouTube talking about things where if you were to ask me just like 5 or 6 years ago, would you ever talk about these things in public or even know about them? I would have definitely said, no way. So here I am. So you never know what the future holds. So that's a little intro about myself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on my show today. You're on Indigo Angel, and I can't wait to have you bring up some of the Mandela effects in regards to the Disney parks, or should I say the Magical Kingdom parks that we're going to be decoding a little bit, because you did bring up some pretty interesting Mandela effects when it came to Tinkerbell. And yes. And the fairies and the fays and the elementals that are involved in the Disney parks. So yeah, it's very interesting. So can't wait to dive into that.
And then Sean, tell us about you.
Okay, my name is Sean Bond of the Psych League, and I have gotten into this a while ago through a bunch of positive, negative activation awakenings that propelled me on a journey to find out what this reality is, accumulate soul family back together and help the world grow and make a school that like brings everyone to greater knowledge about themselves, their greatest self they have within, and to bring their power out to the world and make it a better place. And everyone going into what they love and enjoy, and that power deep within that they need to reach in and grab when they're in situations of facing adversity.
Yeah, Sean. So I was just reading a little bit about your bio. So it says that you're skilled at accessing the user manual for DNA technology of the body to track issues back to the point of origin in order to resolve any problem happening to the body or maybe accessed by organic spiritual technology within each individual, and you assist in creating operating systems to help individuals manifest dormant abilities that unlock their psychic potential and upgrade the body's energy systems. So that's so awesome. So how did you get into doing this work? So, and what kind of healing modalities do you offer?
Well, I've been passionate about abilities for a while, since a little kid, and imagining and going through a bunch of dreams, and where I was able to fly and do telekinesis and teleport, and had ET visitations, and to talk to different spirits and stuff. And then, you know, going through the matrix of a school system and all that kind of like puts you back into a box of, oh, this is all it is, and everything else is just make believe. And then so after getting out of that, having experiences flung on me to where I've my empathic ability opens up dramatically wide, and being able to feel everything deeply, and then having the light aspect of that, and the expanded universal love knowingness, and coming in with that, but then also having it wide open and then getting attacked, and then having to deal with that, and understanding the dark's also here, and it's not all just love and light, and having to learn how to protect myself to overcome that, and events that transpired in which I found out, yeah, you can do more than what we get told that we can do, and there are all these dormant abilities within us, and there's testing grounds we can put it through, and tests, and building a structure in our body that makes it so that we can do more as we evolve. And so I've been getting addicted. I got addicted to blowing my mind, and then kept finding ways to improve, and awakening, and knowing that IQ is not just a fixed number and you can improve it. So I wanted to be the best me I could be in mind, emotions, body, and spirit, and developing that to learn the path of enlightenment, and also superhuman abilities that people can reproduce, because I like to replicate what I see that exists, and then show that others can do them too. How about you? How'd you get into your field of expertise?
Well, thank you for reciprocating the question. So it's definitely been a long, extensive journey, that's for sure. I would say I've always been awakened, at least to the spiritual aspect of things since I was a child. I did see angels and light beings when I was a child. I actually had 3 angels that would follow me around. Some of them were somewhat mischievous and would get me into trouble. But I did actually see them as a child. And I was also very inquisitive as a child. I questioned the church immediately from 4 and 5 years old. I just knew something was not right and it didn't make sense. But I think as many of us on this awakening journey, I was called to go down a path of self-destruction for a while, because I wasn't receiving the answers that I think I really, really needed to fulfill my soul mission from a young age. And so it sent me down a path of destruction. And I had a really hardcore awakening because of that. And it was one of those that just really knocked you on your butt. My immune system crashed. It was a very physical awakening for me. My spirit was, awakening in my body. And I it was hard. It was hard because my immune system was crashing. And so it was one of those things where you thought you were going to die, constantly. I was having near-death experiences all the time, or what felt like near-death experiences where I was constantly dying in the living, right? It felt like I was having these crossing over experiences. And so I just started really awakening probably in about 2013, I would say. And I went through so many different transformations. It was such a crazy process, really. But it took me super quantum cognition. And I would say over the last 5 years is where I've really have developed and got on the course to grid work and grid keeping, and to where I am now, which is where I really focus as a planetary global grid reader. And that's really just really channel and focus a lot of my psychic abilities is from a global perspective, from a universal perspective, from a planetary logos perspective. And so that's just what I like to do. I like to be somewhat of a spiritual detective. I like to decode things. I like to pull in resources from any timeline that I can access. And I like to create and present a more rounded and global picture of what's going on, from a quantum level to a spiritual level to a physical level to a galactic level, and just try to make sense of what's happening here to provide more truth and provide more spiritual alignment for the collective. And so within that, I also am, I guess you could consider me a spiritual healer. I do a lot of chakra clearings. I do seal removals, J seal removals, Draco seal removals. I teach advanced avatar master practices, which is quantum energy mechanics, getting people the techniques and technology and tools to understand the dynamic aspects of their light body field, which is absolutely necessary to knowing what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like spiritual biohacking. And like you just said a minute ago, Sean, which is like thriving off of more knowledge, like thriving off of expanding your mind and your spiritual capacities. So I try to help people to get those tools to do those things themselves. And I've gone all in. My whole entire life is about this life. This is what I live for. So that's why I'm happy to be here with you guys, because I know you guys are all in too. So, and your stories are pretty incredible and amazing. So I know, Chris, that you wanted to, or you were telling me about the recent solar activity that was coming up, and that seemed like that was pretty relative, at least to some of the group grid session work that we did the other night. Because me and you together, we did a group grid session with about 24 other people where we were working on the grids, and we were remoting in, and we were spiritually clearing the ley lines and Stargate locations and vortexual locations in the grids. And right after we had that group session, you were telling me about the solar weather that was going on. And it seemed to be relative to the work that we did.
It seemed to be, because there was one point we were like looking at the different magic kingdoms around the world. And there was one specifically in Hong Kong that we were looking at. And we were doing some work with that. And I was doing some light language with that as well. And all of a sudden, I just happened to glance down at my phone, and I get these text message alerts every time that there's some kind of big solar activity. And there was an X-class flare that fired off from the sun just at that exact same time, which is really interesting. It wasn't, now X-class flares are pretty big. There's a C-class, there's B-class, C-class, M-class, and then X-class, which are big. So having an X-class flare is actually pretty rare to begin with, but we had one. It was from what's called the departing limb of the sun. So it wasn't a direct hit, but the Earth got bathed in solar radiation for it seemed like at least 30 minutes. And then, you talk about the sun and those type of things and Mandela effects. A lot of people that are into Mandela effects, one of the things they talk about is how the sun looks different. Like from their childhood, they might remember it being like more of a yellowish color. And then now it's more of like a whitish color. It's almost like those LED bulbs, like you can buy them by temperature, and the higher temperature are more bluish white, and then the lower temperature more warmer, more yellowish, warmer colors. So a lot of people are like, that's a Mandela effect. The sun was never that way before. And then there's another Mandela effect, that where our solar system is in the Milky Way has changed. Because I know for myself, when I was a kid, I was taught that our sun in our solar system was on the very outer edge of the Milky Way, in this area called the Sagittarius arm. Now it turns out, and a lot of people have spotted this, especially after 2013 and going forward, that no, we've always been in what's called the Orion arm. And we used to be way out on the edge, and now we're, in the almost getting closer to the center of the galaxy. So you take these Mandela effects, you take these things that are happening with the sun, do we literally have a different sun? Have we changed timelines and even Earths? Because geography has changed. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, Mandela effects, that's about the Berenstain Bears, right? Or something like that. Or Kit Kat bars don't have the dash anymore. They never had the dash. Or, a lot of people look at those topical things, but it affects geography. I remember the time when South America used to be right under North America, and now it's closer to Africa. Even the time zones are different, because I used to go to Brazil, and when I would visit there, it was always great because where I would go was Rio de Janeiro, and that was in the same time zone as New York City. So it always worked out great for business stuff, because the time zones were an exact match. Now it's like 2 or 3 hours ahead of us, because the continent has actually changed. So blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I think that all of these things that we look into, and when we add Mandela effects into the mix, it makes it like super interesting. It's like we've got all these pieces of the puzzle. We don't necessarily have all the exact answers, but all the pieces are starting to come in. So I find that all really fascinating, and I love talking about it and studying it and coming up with different hypotheses about what could be going on.
So my question for you is, for our viewers today, could you actually just simply define what the Mandela effect is for everyone listening?
Yeah, so basically what it is, it's when we remember something, when our consciousness, and we basically are consciousness in the way I see it, we're consciousness in a human avatar type body. So our consciousness remembers another timeline. So, like, I'll give you an example. So, okay, if I were to say to you, and this is the Magic Kingdom theme, blank, blank on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? What would you put in for the blank, blank? And I'll give you some preface. Yeah. That's from Snow White, when she's looking at the mirror. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what she said? The first 2 words?
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? Now, you didn't just make that up. You didn't just pull it out of the air, right? You remember it being mirror, mirror on the wall. So do I. So does like probably most of the world's population that's watched that movie or knows Disney stuff. But in this timeline, it's always been magic mirror on the wall. It's never been mirror, mirror on the wall. It's always been magic mirror on the wall. And then... No
way.
Yeah, so that's an example. And then it's like, so once you get over like the shock value, because I can keep telling you some of these things and you'll be like, it's a big shock value. And it's almost like people get, I would say, addicted to these Mandela effects, because it's like, oh, what's another Mandela effect? But then sometimes you can read into them and be like, okay, it's changed. What's the meaning? Magic mirror on the wall. Is that an indication that we're in a timeline where there's going to be more magic, or there is more magic than other past timelines, which might have been a little less magical? So yeah, that's an example of what it is. But basically science will tell you, you've just misremembered. You're confabulating is the word they like to use. And they kind of gaslight people. And, but when you know something really, really well, it's hard. It's like, what? Like, I can't have just misremembered that. And when it's not just you and it's with like millions of other people, it begins to like form a case that there's something important going on that science should legit be studying, but they don't. They just sweep it under the rug.
Now, I notice a lot of these Mandela effects seem to have to do a lot with the magical kingdom, with childhood memories, with childhood books and literature, with the Berenstain Bears, things like this. It's not just specifically those things, but it does seem to pertain a lot. I mean, what would you say the percentage of Mandela effects that seem to pertain to like childhood memories of things?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I find too that the older you are, the more Mandela affected you would be because you have more life experiences. So you've gone through life longer, you've got more life experiences, you've got more memories. So for people that are younger, people that are born like in the last 3 or 4 years that are watching Snow White, to them it'll always be Magic Mirror on the Wall because that's all they've ever heard if they watch the original films or even the films that come after that. And even some of there was was it called The Hunter? There was some newer film based off of Snow White, and they even say, I believe they even say "Mirror, Mirror on the Wall."
The Huntsman.
The Huntsman. Thank you. So they don't even say it the right way to match the original one. Why? Because when they wrote that script, whoever wrote the script clearly remembered "Mirror, Mirror." They didn't have to cross-reference it. We call things like that residue when things. You can find evidence in multiple people of things, or sometimes there'll be costumes or very interesting things like, for example, the Monopoly Man. A lot of people remember him always like having a monocle. Mm-hmm. He's never had a monocle, but you can get like costumes of him to dress up like the Monopoly Man, and it includes a monocle, but he's never like, there's no monocle on any Monopoly board game going back to like whenever it came out in 1925. So that's the concept of what residue is. So it gets really interesting and really deep, really fast. Yeah,
it explains like quantum physics observer effect and the Schrodinger's cat box of observed potential of what is and retrocausal reality being shift things. Observer effects that we can the observer can change the outcome of the experiment, and the perception between the light back to the brain of what we perceive is changeable.
Do you think that these Mandela effects are serving humanity to stay in a focal point of like a tunneled reality of alignment, or do you think it is to, or you think it's meant to make it so our awareness is kind of pushing us to wake up out of the matrix or to see the glitches in the simulation?
Yeah, I vote for the latter because that's the effect that it had on me. Because for me, like the first, like I don't know what these Mandela effects were. It was back in I think 2017, maybe 2016. I was watching a video of the JFK assassination, and I saw it like I don't know, hundreds of times as a kid. I knew exactly what the car looked like and how many people were in the car. It was completely different. And I thought somebody was playing a joke on the internet. Like, who are these extra people? What's this weird car that they're in now? Blah, blah, blah. So when I saw that, it hurt my brain. Or I have friends that are very religious and they read the Bible over and over again. And they know what scriptures say. Like they know script, like in Isaiah, the lion will lie down with the lamb. It's never said that. It's always been like the wolf will lie down with the lamb. And I have a friend and he said he just like went into his bedroom and just cried and prayed for like 2 days because he couldn't, in his actual Bible that he was reading all the time, he woke up one day, opened it up to that passage and it was different. And he's like, what? He couldn't figure it out. So for some people at first, it sends you into this world of like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. But then when you go to the next level, then you start to be like, what is reality? Then I started questioning reality. What is consciousness and all that? So for me, that's the effect that it had.
It's almost as if there is some form of time traveling and like recorrection of past timelines or going back and changing past timelines. Do you think this ties into CERN or any of that type of technology? Have you gotten into any of that research at all?
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, a lot of people feel like, oh, CERN's one of the cyclotrons, like CERN is doing it. And from what I could see, because one of the things I do also is like look into the Akashic Records and what they indicate it looked like for a while, well, a short while, CERN may have had the ability to do something like that, modifying timelines, that type of a thing, especially because now in this timeline, CERN invented the internet. There's other crazy Mandela effects that put CERN in like a really good light. And I'm like, oh, that's really suspicious. I believe that I'll call it stolen authority has been removed from them, but there could have been a point in time where they did have that authority to make some of these changes. My opinion.
Sean, what do you think about that? Because I see you nodding your head when it came to CERN. What are you thinking there?
I agree with him. Yeah, it's like a timeline war, and like being able to see what goes on in like a tree of growing expressions or a garden of votes on where the timeline gets pulled in directions and manifestation. When time is not everyone has the authority to change things. So when the dark they steal the most of their authority, they steal. So they get it from other beings that are having the authority to edit the timeline, like a film that you're putting together in just the right way and to meet a goal. Earth is doing that with a goal of the timeline we're on, in reaching a goal where we evolve out of drama. And there's a large amount of timelines that get created and offshooted off each other that hold expressions of things beings want to experience and want to play out, but not on this timeline, such as like apocalypses and collapses of society and negative timelines. And some of them have warring interaction and have like a big multidimensional apex predator in them that's steering it that direction, that they stole the authority to have the timeline go that way. And then some will even learn tech or steal tech to try to bleed over to other timelines because they may know that they're not on the timeline that is most important. And so then they, like the man in the high castle things, which I'd love Chris to go into more with how that's like the play out of like the Nazis branching out into to other timelines. I will find a lot of things that branch off the now, go into the future, and they make really crappy timelines and existences, such as like what we'll experience in our abduction society as Greys or Zeta Reticula, as like a offshoot, a version of us from the future that hybridized itself, left the planet, lost its ability to breed, went into cloning started getting messed up in their colonies away from this planet, and then they come back to try to have their DNA saved and continue, and then putting it in us and have hybridization programs. And they have paradoxes that get created in the DNA, and then that's very wounding and emotionally distressing. As soon as I like, when I try to interact with the Greys, I try to help them. Oh, there's like over 4,000 plus types of Greys, but this one from the future, and they gave me a sob story, and it was all like, okay, I'll help you and all that. And then as soon as I signed up for that, huge amount of torturous pain just like came at me, and I felt like I was dying. So it wasn't exactly their fault, but it's like they're entangled with this huge drama of all these really bad, poor decisions that mess the timeline up. And they have their emotional body shut down a lot of the time because they feel like they'd be tortured all the time if they had it on. So, and then that makes a bunch of different factions. They're not all bad. And there's purposes for the DNA coming back and the continuation of it and the hybridization, but those paradoxes need to be resolved and so they can smooth out. And so there's a bunch of different factions of the future also coming back and influencing the present, from which in their perception the past, to either solidify their timeline or make it better, which I like the beings that are doing that to make it better. And I think it improves the timeline. The more positive timelines that are doing that to make the past better, that don't want to just like have control over the timeline for their ends, which is annoying.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely agree with you on the hybridization traumas. I do feel like that is probably what halts our spiritual evolution on this earth the most, is how much trauma that we store in our genetics and our own DNA because of all of this hybridizing that has been happening since basically, the motherlands of Mu. And, the beginning of time, since we know human record anyways, and when they began to, or at least at the time of the division of the sexes, right? When they divided the sexes and pulled apart all of the fifth dimensional souls and away from the organic angelic human, and actually forced the fifth dimensional souls, so the twin flames, so to speak, pulled them apart and put them through forced breeding programs, through the reptilians, through the Anunnaki, through the Dracos, all of these things. So I definitely can agree that I feel like that's what we have to address, and that's what has to clear on this earth for us to, tune into those higher timelines that you're talking about. I don't think that humanity can move forward unless these hybridization traumas can be cleared, because that forced breeding program, or I call it a program, or a trauma, essentially is at the core of this, or it's a chink in the chain that goes into these gender universal laws that are being distorted, these creation universal laws that are being basically fractured, and reverse going into anti-life, right? Because everything is getting reversed and it's going the opposite direction through all of the gender manipulation. And so it's because it's distorted people's perception of their roles, male and female. I mean, it's so extensive, these hybridization traumas. And I think it really is going to take unanimously the collective to wake up. That's why this information is so important for us to get out. I mean, everything that we're doing right now, everything that we're talking about right now is absolutely imperative for people to learn their history on this planet and what they have been through and what they've been subjected to since they first came into this realm and into this world. And that's the only way I think that we're going to ultimately raise the frequency, is for people to be able to embody the planetary Akashic history. I think everyone thinks it's this magical gateway that they have to have some sort of magical shift in their ascension for them to be able to have that embodiment. Really, it's just about knowledge. It's just about getting knowledge. It's just about being dedicated to wanting to know these things. That's really what it's about. But I think that's yeah. So you bringing up the hybridization traumas, that opens up a whole can for me, because I'm like, yes. That's what I see when I look into the future, and I look on the higher timelines, and I look into the 5D, into the future Lemuria, and where we're going as a collective, like in this higher frequency, this more hopeful, more peaceful, unified frequency. We've healed those.
I'd love to hear what you have to say on the beginnings of the start of the battle of the sexes, because for pretty much everyone, it's like that's alive. It's like, God, it's been going on forever. It's always been like that. It's just, to me, it's like, no, like what you said, and it's refreshing to hear somebody else say that. It's not been fully. There's a time when we haven't been divided by our class system to like divide people by race, by class, by gender, by political beliefs, by every polarity under the sun. The tools of division and Machiavellism, divide and conquer, so that they're easier to rule over. And as we bring all these things to unity and knowing and truth and care, and like it's like marriage counseling. We bring the polarities together. If they really hate each other, let's say that, then they have to put up their boundaries, and they have to never cross each other's boundaries. And every time one of the other sides crosses their boundaries, it is them perpetuating the war, whether they know it or not. And then that should be frowned upon. So then the boundary is made strong, and then they can start unifying and trading and giving what they both bring to the table back together, and they come to complete unity and like bringing loves together. But they don't have to, be the greatest love, but like love between everyone and how we spark that. And
Yeah, well, when it comes to the division of the sexes, I can tell you what I do know and remember. I have to really tune into my Hydra knowledge. And it takes me into galactic Hydra knowledge, yes. The serpent constellation, the primordial progenitor serpent race, the Hydra system. Which I have been shown that this is the progenitor race to the Pleiadians and to the Anunnaki. And this goes back to the seraphim and the soul monadic structure of the seraphim angels, which I do feel that the Dracos and the Hydra systems ultimately both came from the seraphim system, but they are not of the same, genetic, but they share the same soul monad through the seraphim. And so having that said, I think it's pinned the Hydras and the Dracos at war since
like the Naga
yeah,
serpent. Gotcha.
The Nagas, and then the Dracos and the dragons. And I think it's a warfare that's descended from a celestial template down into the lower density planes. But I think it goes back even further than Hydra's history. Because some of the recollection that I've had had to do with the Great Cassiopeian War that came down from Andromeda, and that these were the beings that the Cassiopeian Council of Nine, they were like, it was a divine feminine, androgynous, unified divine feminine, divine masculine principle. And they brought down the universal laws from the Andromedan systems through the great councils of Cassiopeia, and they gave that to the Crux system. The Crux system gave this knowledge to the Nakal people of the motherlands of Mu. And they wrote about this in their creation tablets. And a lot of that information was lost, and it was, basically, burned. And but some of it did make its way to Lemuria and through the Kunam, Kumari, and into India. And so this is where the ancient rishis, I think, got a lot of their knowledge. Those creation tablets, they didn't like them because they stated that the creator at that time, or at least according to the people of Mu, was the seven-headed serpent. And so a lot of that was taken from that time. And that's why if you look at Genesis in the Bible, they inverted a lot of those stories and made the serpent basically the antagonist. But they had taken a lot of that information from the Nakal tablets. But I think it comes down that at the division of the sexes, this was, I think, the beginning of the first genocidal seedings. And this is when, so I don't think this is something that ultimately came down from Atlantis. I think this is something, I think it's a parasitic type of genetic mentality that exists in all lineages, all races, all types, all creeds, all kinds. And I think that it's not the Dracos or the Anunnaki. I think it's something that exists within all of them. And it's some sort of evil that lives within. That's why I wanted to actually get into this. So shout out to Sethicus, because I'd love to have his decode on this, because he's talked a lot about the old dark ones and what this means, that they're not from this universal system. They're not from this matrix. And Chris, we were doing that group grid session. And remember, we got to the location in Disney, the Hong Kong location. And I kept saying, I'm seeing something that's actually plugging the Stargate system of our Earth system into another Stargate. That whatever's fallen on this Earth, or whatever is seeded through the gate systems, through the hijacking, through the ley lines, through the genetics, this evil, right? That it's actually pulling and feeding off of our Stargate system into another system. that they've somehow hijacked our entire system. This old dark energy. I couldn't see much further into it than that, though.
When I hear that kind of a description, it reminds me of, and I've made videos about this, the concept of the antiverse. So light, yin and yang. So, and then how that even ties into Atlantis. And when I've looked into things, I've seen that, well, there's different falls of Atlantis. One of the falls that I can see happened in the area that we call the Bermuda Triangle. And there's an area not right off, but near the island of Bermuda called Plantagenet Bank. It's basically the remains of a volcano. It's an electromagnetic source that's there. And there have been, like, the United States Navy, if anyone's ever heard of Sea Lab, that's in the 60s, they launched this thing for these divers and stuff to stay underwater for months, that type of a thing. They launched it on Plantagenet Bank, like they were actually studying that. Why would they could have launched Sea Lab anywhere in the world, and they chose that specific area, and they planted all these special listening microphones down there. Like, what are they listening for? And then you take the word Plantagenet, and that goes to European old time history, where a lot of the old kings, King Richard and all of these people, were all from the Plantagenet family. And there's even evidence. Actually, I saw this video of this it's probably like 9 or 10 years old. And what she did was she actually traced all US presidents. I think 98% of all US presidents can be traced back to their Plantagenet heritage. Now, so what does this all mean? It's all clues. It's all really fascinating. It's all really interesting. And then how that tied into Hong Kong that you saw, if it's the same type of network, is, just starts tying everything, all these pieces of the puzzle start coming together.
They definitely do. Yeah. Do you mind if I go to the map?
No, do it.
Oh, lots. It's a lot of when I'm tracking back apex predators that are entangled with parasitic attachments with a lot of people, it eventually goes back to a bunch of things getting through ritually opened with dark stolen, a lot of stolen authority portal between this universe and the antiverse. I've seen this happen. I'm tracking it back. It mostly just happened once on this planet. It's a lot. It takes a lot to open it, and each time it happens, there's more and more blowback and things wanting to stop it from happening again. So there's a lot more resiliency. It's like a growing thing. So I saw it, like you said, happen once in the fall of Atlantis on the Earth, and then before that, it happened in other solar systems, like Alpha Draco has one. Orion had one open. I saw one happen in Sirius B. A few other places that, like the Dark, have corrupted a place and invaded it quite heavily, and then they stole a bunch of authority from a bunch of different individuals altogether, because it's like a nuclear key that you got to have multiple members sign off on. And so they get their stolen authority from that. And then I usually find a bunch of beings have a time war over it. The light try to go back in time and stop it and prevent it and shrink the whole thing down to less space, less time it was open for. And then there's a war with the Dark of them trying to get through the portal from the antiverse and then get as many beings over here and as possible. And then that's like a tug of war. And some of the back doors that are open have been resolved to a certain point, and the resolution seems to be a trade of certain beings from our universe going over to the antiverse and certain beings from there. And it's what is it called when you trade students from other countries?
Foreign exchange students.
Yeah, it's like that, but darker and dramatic. and they're usually like associated with the same type of spirits, and there's like a balancing act between it, because the antiverse is like a lymphatic system that compresses a bunch of the viruses and negative beings that are invading the multiverse from other multiverses. So it's a resolution of, okay, before you invade all the high quality needed to be protected universes, you have to go through the antiverse, and then that usually slows them down or changes them or brings them into some type of unity with the multiverse before they get their agenda done. But the bigger predators, it won't really stop them, and then they'll try to dominate the antiverse and then try to do what they're doing, which then hack into other universes in the multiverse and reach down to the places that have the most authority, most effect on other places, such as what Earth has got.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to hear about this map.
Sure. Well, I'm kind of, it's all of this really ties in, because this is my dragon grid. I call it the fallen dragon grid. Everybody on my channel kind of knows about this. I talk about it all the time. But it's running antiverse templating. It's running reversal templating. It's running anti-life templating. It's charted by draconic energies. So China being the head of the dragon, Indonesia being the claw, and then the spine of the dragon being the UK, the Welsh portion of the UK, and then running this templating. So it's kind of like a anti-life templating. So going from a galactic or a celestial perspective, and then breaking that down in terms of universal and planetary systems, and then into overlays or inorganic or anti-life control networks in the grid structures that are running collective energy, and those whose light body fields are attuned to those control anti-life matrix systems. Basically, their light bodies or their fields are then funneling in that direction and following the systematic programming or the hive mind mentality of that control system. And this one runs, I think the thing about this one that really ties into the magical kingdom, each of these controls systems run different facets of what's going on collectively or governmentally, politically, social issues, humanity issues, basically. This template, you can see it kind of looks like a dragon, but this is running a lot of the AI singularity vortexes, because that's how it kind of facets in the grid, is through the AI singularity vortexes and the technology that's running in China, in the UK, and then also in Silicon Valley in California. How the magical kingdom ties into it is I looked up all of the largest magical kingdom parks and seen that those parks were running inside of the dragon templating at all of these white locations with the stars here. 3 of those magical kingdom locations in the head, in the spine, and then in the tail, and then down here in Orlando. But all of the magical kingdom parks running on the 33rd parallel, which the 33rd parallel is a really important ley line globally that's running life and anti-life technologies basically into the grids. It's operating off all the major Stargate systems in the world, basically along that ley line. There's quite a few that run along here. But generating the quantum energy and the quantum technology, and again, assisting those galactic anti-life realms, because everything that's hijacked on those levels is also hijacked in the planetary fields as well, from the rod and staff of the central vertical pillar of the grid and in the planet, all the way to the ley lines into the gate systems themselves as well. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting how all those magical kingdom parks kind of fall into that grid templating. They also, this is one that I did that just charted all of those 13 schools. So I recently put out a video just talking to parents, like, if your kids are in these harvesting facilities, you might want to rethink their education at this point, just because of everything that is coming down the pipeline when it comes to the magical kingdom, going into that Mandela effect of this hypnotizing technology, this fantasy technology. You know, it's archontic deception behavior, and it's how they are, you know, subconsciously programming the youth through subtle subconscious programming to distort their gender function and their gender principles from a really young age. And so it's just, you know, putting the message out that I think parents should definitely be aware and honestly be appalled. And all of this should really invoke their primal instinct to protect the fertile minds of their offspring, if they care about the direction of where you know, humanity is going, because we need the basic principles of gender to continue to, you know, have a fruitful civilization on this earth, right? So yeah, so that's why I did this. But yeah, it all really ties into the reversal and the anti-life technology, right? Because if we want to distort gender principle, that's feeding an anti-life technology, or an anti-life grid, or anti-life genetics, or an anti-life light body field in terms of its particle rotation. Everything would be going in the direction of destruction, basically, because that's not what actually brings life on this earth.
I wanted to say something about the Orlando location. So there is the theory and evidence, et cetera, from like the Akashic Records and so forth, that that location could have been where the legendary Fountain of Youth was located, or at least some kind of a magic wellspring. And maybe that's something that Walt Disney actually, you know, chose that property for a specific reason. It was all swampland, but maybe there was something that was special that was there. Therefore, the name, the Magic Kingdom. And I don't think there's any of the other Disneylands that are called the Magic Kingdom. They might have magic elements to them, but that is, you know, that particular location. So, you know, could that be that it's over based in their harvesting that magic energy and using it for their own purposes?
Yeah, that was a really good point that you brought up. You know, because the guys that originally created the parks, they were supposedly they were members of the CIA. They were into remote viewing. They were into higher, you know, studies of technology when it comes to these things. They probably had the files to the Montauk projects and all of the experiments that they did on humans when it came to hypnotizing and basically, you know, distorting the mind control programs. And that came down through, also they had access to Tesla technology. So I guess some of the carousels and things like this were built on Tesla technology. So, and they strategically structured this in the ley lines perfectly to, like you said, probably capitalize or hijack the potential fountain of youth, or the fountain of youth being a gateway itself to more greater areas of reservation pools of greater energy or collective energy in the Earth's field. I know when we zoomed into this location here the other night, it was really interesting how we were seeing that there were like pools of reservation, like of water or like fresh water underneath this land of Florida here, and then possible civilizations that actually like underground inner earth civilizations that live down in Florida. And then we also seen what was interesting is these ley lines from Orlando going through the Bermuda here, and then through Louisiana as well, with New Orleans, you know, being known for like voodoo magic, and it's just a really heightened area as well. And that this is also like how they're pulling some of this energy or potentially capitalizing off of that fountain of youth energy.
There's also a pyramid we just found out about in New Orleans underwater.
Really? I do know that the Fountain of Youth has something to do with the Bimini Islands. I think it said that the Bimini Islands were the restorative and mythical powers came from the Bimini Islands. So the Caribbean islands, basically. And then when you look at what's going on with all of the harvesting of the the pedodontia gate type stuff, that is everything is the trade routes anyways are running through the Caribbean islands, and then you have this fountain of youth thing going through there as well. So it's kind of like, what is the fountain of youth? You know what I mean?
Yes, and is there only one fountain of youth? Because all of a sudden I'm getting a hit that there could be more than one fountain of youth on the surface. So that's something to be aware of as well. And then it's really interesting too when you look into the history of people that have allegedly found the fountain of youth. I think on that Wikipedia page that you had, I think Alexander the Great was one of the people that actually was able to find it. He traveled through a land that had no sunlight. Kind of sounds like Antarctica to me, but I don't know. And then somehow he was able to find the Fountain of Youth. According to a book that I had never heard of before, to me it's a Mandela effect, called The Alexander Romance, which is a book about everything from before he was born to all of his adventures. Because I had looked into that a lot. I'd never known about that. So I think just one thing I want to add is that, and I hope we talk about like the galactic origins of cannabis. That's why I'm here. I don't know anyone else.
I know, we got to get to that.
Yeah, so we need to get to that. But there's a lot of interesting things. But my point is, it seems like the timelines we're going into have more data inside of it. There's more information. So, and it could be like kids, like Napoleon, has 3 sons now. I always thought he never was able to have, he never had any kids with the main woman that he liked. I forget what her name is at the moment. But now he has 1 legitimate son and 2 illegitimate sons. So, but I never knew that before. But that's just an example. There seems to be like more information that flows into these. As we advance in the timelines, we're getting like just more data that comes with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of this is just to keep awakening us more and more to the reflection of ourselves and how we need to keep going and doing that deeper inner work as a collective. I think a lot of us have done this deep inner work on a personal level. And now it's time for us to step into guardian roles and parental roles and assist others and bring others through, and then collectively be reflective, and then start collectively starting to dig a lot deeper and go to the root of these childlike distortions. I think this is what all of this with the magical kingdom, what's come up, this is where it's taking us, is to go to the root of our collective childhood traumas. Yeah. So we're clearing a lot.
Exactly too. And then just like sharing all these things that we learned. So like I'll learn a set of information about something, and you have your expertise and what you're looking into and studying, and you're bringing that forward and you're sharing that. And people are like, certain things people are resonating with, and it just keeps building that I'll call it the human consciousness grid. Like all of a sudden, like the 99th monkey, we're all finally going to get it. Like, oh, this is what life is about. It's not what we were taught by the government, which in Latin literally means mind control. If you look at that, that's another show. But the whole concept of the galactic origins of cannabis, like, is it just something that's just right here in this particular Earth realm, or does it exist in other places? Sean, what do you think?
Sure, I'll put my 2 cents in. Yeah, and then feel free to bring up your questions on this gracious of days for
yes.
This many things have happened and manifested and magically that people have experienced on this day. What could have happened on this day? So yeah, with cannabis, and you know, I'm not an arbor of truth, so this is what I tune into and track back with multiple people and interact with the collective. So feel free to, you know, people add their thing to it, and it can kind of mesh together. Uh, it seems to exist a lot of places, on and off planet. I've tracked it back to where it's being cultivated as a medicine for healing, emotional remedy, for vision improvement, peace, amplification, and evolution. So there's a lot to it, and there's, you know, many different strains in the branch of the ganja goddess that drives it, and then all these different people incarnating into the different plants, seedlings, and cloning and offshoots, and so people that are highly invested in it might find themselves spiritually involved in different strains, especially if they cultivated a new one themselves. They'll be part of that, and like if you evolve, you can incarnate, branch off like soul part versions of yourself into multiple experiences. You may even already have them in this plant medicine. So, and we're not condoning drugs and use and all, you know, whatever I'm going to talk about. People are going to do this whether we say to or not. So, but this is for those that are in the trenches of this experience and of needing it to, you know, escape or take care of stress or heal many wounds, because it like replaces 20 medicines in just the use of that. Don't recommend smoking it, but people do. If you have to vaporize or ingest, but whatever. People do it for fun too, to heighten their experience. So understand. I also understand both communities in the spiritual movements that like are for or against it. Understand the purity aspect of it, because you should never have a use anything for a crutch, but at the same time, some people really need it. So I understand that. And then there's the cool factor in the culture, and so like use with moderation, no judgment.
I
Okay,
agree. Moderation is key. Yeah.
And 420 show. So feel free to ask as many 420 questions as possible. Please permeate the chat with them. Okay. So when I track it back, there's a lot of activity, especially as it was cultivated with greater amounts of THC or CBD. So I'm preaching.
I have a question for you. So is cannabis, do you know galactically where it originated from?
Yeah. At least with what I track back, not saying I know everything. So there's like even on the planet, when it first got here, it's not as strong as what it was created as now. So the strains on this planet have become incredibly overpowered. So then they're taken off world as well and used in commerce and trade and to multiple realms. Light and dark both use it for various activities. And there's technology within it greatly, which I'll list.
Wait, Sean, can I stop you for a second? Off-world trading, commerce? I think that's pretty interesting. So there are species that will come here and somehow acquire cannabis onto their ships and then take it. I just want to make sure like the audience understands what you meant when you said that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's many species can interact with it safely. It's relatively low toxicity. I don't even know of anyone that's ever overdosed on it. So imagine the scientific test and video that would entail. But yeah, so when I read back origins, I find in concept is older than this universe, but the strain as it is now and the potency of it is relatively within the Earth game. Before it got here, I do read that a lot of it was brought here by like the Anunnaki in like various amounts of things they brought with them in farming and activity and knowledge. They're like a super hybrid that mixed with many different races altogether, including some of their older royalty of Orion reptoids and Syrian, a large amount of hybrid of royalty. And then I see they got it from Sirius, from Sirius B is one of their faction offshoots. That got it from Sirius A, and Sirius A seems to be like the main hub of a lot of the creation that was going on. Before that, though, I do read in the center of the galaxy, it was being formulated on different planes of reality, of trying to figure out solutions for things, and then being spawned on multiple planets. So the planet Sirius A, one of the planets in the Sirius A star system, seems to have spawned it. But before that, it was in multiple dimensions of formulation in collectives in like the center of the galaxy. I read it was formed both by the prime creator of the center of the galaxy, like a whole bunch of angels, like a collective of, let's see, I wrote in my note.
I knew angels smoked.
Yeah, it was a collective of billions of spirits that came together to formulate the collective of it. 90% of them were angels, 5% dragons, and a bunch of elder plant and tree spirits that were from other planets that were trying to form into this new expression. And then
I knew it was dragon because Puff the Magic Dragon. It had something to do with celestial dragon energy that brought it here.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go into the Puff the Magic Dragon. I think that definitely the highest, biggest cannabis dragon that there exists.
It could have different strains could have descended from different systems. Like we have the draconic strain, the Anunnaki strain,
exactly,
the Andromedan strain, Syrian strain.
Yeah, that Anunnaki hashish. Yeah, like you say, I read it is being used both by light and dark. It is used in valuable purpose-serving activities by both, and so it's high value. Even on our International Space Station, I saw some leaked videos of one of the astronauts going and then holding up a bag. So you see it smuggled everywhere, if not, just directly traded. And then why is it illegal to begin with? Like with the categorization of drugs and that whole crap system that's going on. We know why. I'm sure you guys can add to it, but it was seen as a threat to both the oil industry, the textile industry, the woodworking and clothing, and a bunch of other types of like what you could make in opposition to oil as a fuel source, and like how hempcrete could save the world, and how fast hemp and cannabis grows to where it can produce more oxygen and suck up more carbon out of the atmosphere, so it could help save against global warming or whatever.
Which is actually kind of like resurfacing again, because there was that NASA scientist that chained himself to a building and was jailed. Did you guys see that? Did you see about that NASA scientist who was like freaking out about global warming? And there was like 100 other scientists who were protesting and also facing jail time for the public not listening to the scientists' concern about the carbon emission levels.
What they do in the protest?
And there was a NASA scientist, I guess he chained himself to the building and they arrested him because he was trying to get his message out about, how serious everything is. he started crying. It was a big deal. It was, it got, shared out and everything. This was just last week, I think.
Yeah. A lot of those problems can be solved with all the technology that we're going to have that can like suck up carbon emissions out of the air, and all the free energy that's being suppressed that would end the oil industry, which is why this whole problem is perpetuated by the oil industry. And then they're trying to get a carbon tax, and that doesn't solve the problem. That just makes the elite more money. Man, and it also like makes you, it's for those that partake of it, it makes you think differently. It makes you see outside the box. It makes you see into other realities. You get visions, inspiration. It will have a good and a bad aspect. The bad aspect, I'd say, is it gets you into either being a couch potato and doing nothing, and like maybe not being as productive, and also like low memory retention, and numbs you, and it's not good for like traveling. But that's there's boxes for each activity of things, so moderation with it. So not to Willie Nelson or Snoop Dogg smoke every day. It's
really about like strain with your genetics too, right? Because they have so many cultivated strains now. I mean, I don't smoke that much, but when I do, I actually use it medicinally. I don't even see it as a drug. I see this as like a medicinal plant, and we're bringing in, this natural resource to help us with anxiety, help us to relax, help us through ascension processes, ascension symptoms, help us achieve higher fourth dimensional states of mind. It opens up the cannabinoid receptors and allows us to reach those higher levels and that higher elevation, and let go and relax into feeling more so versus thinking. It helps us, put down the mind. And so, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to somebody if they don't feel like it's right for them. But I could say that it can be used as a spiritual tool for meditation. It can be used to help you achieve spiritual goals if you, use it in moderation, and have like a goal in mind with it, and also find the right strand that is good for your body and your genetic makeup. They have so many options now. At least I know in Colorado, they're definitely like way ahead of the game when it comes to that. If you go into the dispensaries, you can go in and choose like all these different, hundreds and hundreds of different strains, and they have everything broken down to the amount of THC, the amount of CBD, the amount of this or that, and what it does and how it affects you. So like if you don't want something that's going to like make you landlocked, and you want something that's going to make you think, like you said, out of the box, then you have these like hybrid or sativa strains that have these different effects that do different things. And they help cure so many ailments in the body, like premenstrual syndrome, things like that. There's like specific strains just for premenstrual syndrome that actually ease, PMS. So, it's really, it's like you said, I think it's cultivating the collective to be able to become more organically based and organically minded, and tune us back into our organic resources. And I think you're absolutely right with that.
What do you think, Chris, on that?
One of the things, like there's a couple things. One of the things is I've like Indigo was talking about, how there's all these different strains, right? So I find that like really fascinating, because how easily you can crossbreed different strains of marijuana. And when I was tuning into it, I was getting an image of an orange marijuana plant, completely orange. And I'm like, what the heck? Where's this from? And then I was getting the Oz realm, the land of Oz.
Good. They got some.
They've got some of the orange strain. And then when I was looking further into it, and I think, Indigo, you've got a link that I sent you for the different strains, but there's actually all the different chakra colors there's different strains of marijuana that they've breeded together to create different colors. And then you wonder, a rainbow of cannabis. Yeah. If you scroll down a little bit, it starts listing the different colors, like red,
rainbow,
orange, like in the Land of Oz. And does that, orange, sacral, creativity, fertility,
more alkaline conditions,
tangerine dream.
Yeah, so I find that really interesting, and I find it's interesting how humans can also, like this type of, like, different types of races of humans can breed together, certain, like dogs and cats as well. Like what does that all mean? And then our cannabinoid receptors, the CB1 and CB2 receptors that everyone has in every cell of their body, and how the cannabis plant is like a key that turns the lock. And what does that actually mean? Could that, on a deeper level, could that mean more of a connection to Earth? Could this be another way that we could go closer to Earth? And I know for myself, like, I never tried. I was brought up very, very religious, and I didn't even try anything like this until I was in my 30s. And when I did, my first experience was like, I can't believe this is illegal. Like, it totally like relaxed me, because I was always like very tense and everything. So yeah, so that all these different aspects, the different colors, how we have the cannabinoid receptors inside of our body, they're all clues to why the plant is here, the medicinal value to it, how can it help us grow and spiritually mature, because it does it can, with the right strain especially, put your mind into a certain state where you're more receptive for things, like DMT would do. When people would smoke like a DMT substance, all of a sudden the veils get lifted. The person's body frequency literally vibrates higher, and you can see more of what's actually around you. So these are all different properties of cannabis that many will continue to explore.
Yeah, I really like the point you just made with the key. It's the key to the cannabinoid receptors within us. Do we know what the cannabinoid, am I saying that right? Receptors within us, do we know what they're for? If they're not to be activated with cannabis, what do they serve inside of us?
Exactly. It's like a very special cipher. It's like a very special key. So yeah, exactly. There must be a reason. One of the receptors, I think it's CB1, is the one that actually makes you feel physically or mentally inebriated or high. I'm not sure about what the CB2 does, but yeah, these are all really important things.
I'm liking the color show, but yeah, there's a lot to it. With the receptor thing, I'd say that scientifically it can be like looked into, like with what all the other receptors do with the chemicals being introduced to the body, and neurotransmitters, and the ray of perception, kind of like unlocking a perception, and what the little subtle changes do to our experience, like when DMT like hits or some other type of drug experiences, what we can perceive the dimensions around, even like non-local stuff, like an antenna or a radio receiving a signal. So like tuning into the cannabis technology, there's like greater stuff going on that we haven't even tapped into fully. So people that are more cultured or experienced with this will have some interesting experiences that have unlocked that. If they do large heroic doses, I'm sure they've started having interesting experiential trips. So some more notes of what I've found and tuned into with it. You want to have a good relationship with the spirit of the plant. Treat it with respect. Any substance that you're taking in, you can, based on your relationship with it, can change your experience. If you're being very sacred and loving towards it, and respectful of the objects of power, then it will treat you well. Same thing with mushrooms, same thing with other psychedelics. If you want to get them to like you, if they're haunted, if they're entangled with a bunch of stuff having to do with the person you got it from, the drug deals, the whatever, the pharmaceutical industry, the GMO crops, my God, with GMO cannabis, the worst, most haunted stuff I've ever had, causes incredible paranoia. It opens up portals. It sucks. If it's nice, organic, well grown, well treated with love, then it takes you on an amazing experience with no paranoia, intense visions, and lots of creativity, and just have the greatest time. So you want to learn how to de-haunt your product before you intake it as well. Not saying that it's all haunted or whatever. A lot of the time it will de-haunt itself. The collective is engaged with every member involved, and they're trading. So everyone using cannabis is trading with the ganja spirit in the collective around that, and for what things they're good at. Usually what they'll get if they don't like ask for anything is like, oh, you'll get trapped emotions released or resolved. You'll have pain relieved, or it will resolve a bunch of stuff in a healing methodology, and the spirit will trade with your higher self. If you can like ask for things you want and put that into the programming of the cannabis as you evolve. You can also smoke magic into spiritual locomotion. There's an involvement with the collective where I was able to grow in it to a large degree, where you can earn where up in the spiritual collective to where you're a bigger player involved, and even have your spirit involved in a particular strain. I was recently getting to the point where I could resolve more of its bigger problems that was expanded through the multiverse. Most of the problems it's dealing with is on Earth. Most of the drama I'm reading, bleeding over and trying to attach to it, trying to steal soul parts from the collective, is a lot at the fall of Atlantis, some at the fall of Lemuria, and some at when war was first introduced to Earth, is like the big wounds that cannabis has experienced. So if you want to trade and you're good at resolving things, those are the things to heal up, and cannabis will love you and level you up and involved in it. Also, depending on what day you're using it, what's going on around on the planet, how many other beings are using it, how overloaded it is with things spiritually asking it for help. Like recently, most of the things that were overloading the cannabis collective were like people that were stressed out in Ukraine. And before that, it had to do with the truckers in Canada. And so like you can help bring that back up to its high state of being so that everyone does well. But essentially those people are like asking for help to get through their trauma and stress. And so they're going to need the most amount of help. So that's where most of Ganja Spirits Collective is going. And that will happen around the planet with each drama, with the users, and escapism. There's also like a thing, if you want to make it so cannabis and the Cannabis Collective is doing really well, if you learn how to purify things, if you learn how to unite with beings in the collective and get everyone working in harmony. Depossession is also a good skill that not many people know it. The unity of inner child and inner elder for some reason, and like most people don't even know about the inner elder. But
inner elder.
Good point. I like that.
Yeah,
it's like our future self that has like grand hindsight of all the experiences, and it can relay that back in intuition anytime that you made a very correct decision.
I am definitely one with my inner elder.
It's like bringing them together, and then it's like a big merging of both miracles and grand knowingness.
I've always said I'm like an 80-year-old in 35-year-old body.
Here's the high mind. Oh yeah, and then I was reading things with matrices that were trying to attach and target high-powered spirits that would change the future and then bring Earth up out of negative state into a higher dimensionality. And so a bunch of things in the future are targeting that, and then stealing matrix authority from specific places, and then throwing them at people and trying to get them caught up in like a continued loop of limiting in them and holding them back. There's always a way out of the matrix. So it's like making a prison. If you don't make a way out, then if you accidentally get locked into it, it's bad news, and then so that would be really stupid. So there's always a way out. Usually the last place you want to look, your shadow, big fear, core fear, whatever. And the fear was like, it's like like when people have the need for cannabis or other drugs and they need to escape, the fear is like, I'll never be able to feel whole again or be satiated on my own, or resolve the thing that it keeps coming up emotionally. And if you face that and shrink it and transmute it down, you resolve any dark aspect in that. Then there was a situation I was reading into the directions that cannabis played in the timeline war and how much it changed things. And the more people that partake, it like awakens them. It seems to get people questioning the government a lot. And like you said, it can cure a bunch of illnesses. And like the Rick Simpson method has been used to cure cancer if you overload the body with cannabinoids. Can you guys both talk a little bit about what you think it does to the timeline? That they're stopping it, trying to stop it.
I was getting some downloads as you were talking, almost as if I had the question, what if the entire warfare, the whole cosmic drama was over cannabis? And we didn't even realize it, like on a quantum level, like that's what was playing out.
Yeah. If it's like people think this whole game is about humans. No, it's about the cannabis.
It's not over money at all. It's about cannabis. That, and then also what you were saying about getting people to question the government. I'm wondering, if we look at this, because it does seem, with what happened in 2020, we had more of this cannabis boom that kind of took over, and I think more states have legalized it. I know it started originally in Colorado, and then California followed, and Florida and New York, and all the major hubs. Still illegal in Alabama. With it. What is up with that? But it's just a very super red conservative state. But it makes me wonder if we took some sort of spiritual survey as to how many of those who are on this spiritual awakening or on this woke path, how many of them partake in utilizing cannabis, what percentage we would see of how this is contributing to this global awakening. It'd be really, really interesting to be able to kind of dissect those statistics and find out, is this maybe at the core of what is helping people ascend and wake up?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because that's exactly what happened to me. Because the first, I was raised very, very strictly. Like I barely would drink a beer or a glass of wine maybe once every 5 years. And then the first time I tried cannabis, I was like, why is this illegal? I was like, and I began to really question. I honestly, sincerely, at that point forward for myself, started to really question the government, because it made no sense. It made no sense at all. And as we've been talking, I wonder how much cannabis the Pleiadians are exporting from Earth into the Pleiadian star system.
The Pleiadians are getting down.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to mention one other thing real quickly. Is one of the things that Sean spoke briefly about was like weed possibly, or it could be the cannabis could be haunted, or somebody could get a bad trip from it. And legitimately, that could happen, especially who you're getting it from. It's like anything else, like a negative energy gets put into it. Mm-hmm. So I know for some people, you can scale it like -10 to +10, 0 is neutral, let's say negative 10 is more of the haunted variety and positive 10 is like, woo, super sacred. You can, someone like me, I'll use something like muscle testing or kinesiology to figure out like, where is this particular batch? Like, where did it come from? And, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, oh, that might be a 2. And I might want to make it more. So I'll put it on my altar or whatever procedures we have to like make it more sacred. And then that reduces the chances of people being like, oh, I didn't like it, or et cetera. It could be they didn't like it because they had, there was literally a negative like energy that was attached to it that wasn't cleared. So I want to just mention that too.
Mm-hmm. Also, going back to using in moderation, I think if it's something you want to try as a spiritual tool, it's a good thing to do in subtle amounts of moderation if you're going to go into meditation, because it really will allow you to get to those higher states. But, also the reason for moderation is just the health of your body, right? Making sure that you're not, damaging your throat, burning the back of your throat, or damaging your lungs or things like this. One thing I found for people that like to partake in using cannabis is to do a lung cleanse every now and then. And there are supplements that you can do for that, which is something called NAC. It's a respiratory, it's like just a natural vitamin that you take it detoxes the lungs, and also a supplement called quercetin. I just thought of that because I've been taking those. Quercetin,
from onions, right? I think quercetin, is it with a Q?
With a Q, yeah,
yes.
Quercetin.
I'm pretty sure it's from onions, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been taking those in combination together before I go to sleep at night, and I do feel that my lungs expand and I get a much deeper breath before I go to sleep. I just really like that feeling. So I've been doing detoxes for my lungs lately.
Lovely.
But yeah.
It's wonderful to hear, because most people don't even know that you can detox their lungs. I
know, right? I just actually found this out recently. In the last few months, I've been getting more heavy into my supplements and things like that. But I just noticed when I took those two in combination together, I just really felt myself getting a nice deep breath, and it felt really, really good. So I know it's working.
Also know those inhalers that will help breathing, and if you hack up what's in the lungs for a certain amount of time, then they'll release a bunch of the crap there. And yeah, it's one of those big things that's like a give and take of, you'll notice your cardio dips if you smoke too much. So.
And I just want to say too, not everybody on my channel or your guys' channel may resonate or align to using cannabis for spiritual practices or for self-spiritual experimentation, or, and if you don't align with it, that's okay. The best thing is to go along with your gnosis. It's definitely not for everybody. And, but yeah, I find it's a really great tool when one's going through the dark night of the soul. And it also helps getting people off of prescriptions.
Exactly.
And it helps people get off or out of addiction patterns as well, because it's like for a lot of people, when they're struggling with anxiety or depression or, whatever it is. And if you go to a regular doctor, they're going to give you antidepressants. They're going to give you sleeping pills. They're going to give you anti-anxiety medications. And before you know it, you're hooked on all of those things. And now you're struggling to get off of these things that are affecting you or making you more sick in other ways. And the thing about cannabis is it's a natural thing that can help you with curbing those anxiety attacks or moments of depression. And you can utilize it more of like, not something that you need to repetitively be addicted to, but can help you in moments of, weakness or whatever, trying to get through some of those low points, to keep you from going into addictive patterns with chemicals and things that are really actually going to take a much greater toll on your body. That's my personal opinion. Everybody might not agree with that, but I have seen it help people that I know in that way. And so I've seen it firsthand. So I do know that it can be used as a tool for something that is more constructed as a pathway to getting you on the right path.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And for like people that feel like they've been wounded or are in a state of sickness or something, they're dealing with like anxiety or being a target individual or extreme stress or something that you're not like fully balanced out. It's a good place to get you back into balance. If you're already in a state of homeostasis and you're good and maintaining the spiritual purity, feel free to keep doing that, because it's not going to like, it's only going to give you a interesting experience. It's not going to like elevate you beyond like crazy. So if you can, if you're at that state where you're avoiding it, feel free to keep avoiding it if you're able to maintain yourself. But for those that need it, like in sickness with a lot of other medicines, use it until you can get yourself up to the state where you don't need it anymore. And there'll be a little bit of a struggle on when that is, or when it is, only if you are still facing the same issues of anxiety, because you which takes going to the core of the issue. If somebody's like trying to find solutions in all these other directions and only the directions that they're okay or comfortable going in, you're usually not going to solve it. It's usually the most uncomfortable thing in facing. That's like the core issue. And whatever time you need to do that, go for it. And then this thing will help you get along with it, because it helps you create dopamine and serotonin, oxytocin, and the things that help you feel elevated, happy, and blissful to amplify that experience. That in itself is a repellent to a lot of negative entities and stuff. They feel very uncomfortable when you're feeling happy. They have to like put you down to their level. Though if you use too much of it, then you will not be able to create your own on. So that there's the detriment aspect of it. So moderation, as long as you're cultivating your ability to feel joy all the time in all the situations with like mindfulness and enjoying being alive and transmuting all the negative emotion that we're holding on to. And if there's targeting involved, then it's like a certain amount of trauma that wants to get resolved, that's either coming up from the past or the is involved in the present, and you're quarantining that as a survival mechanism to take care of later. So it helps you resolve that for later. You in the moment you can still resolve it, but and then it makes it less of an overwhelm. But most people don't do that. They just put it aside and then push it deep down, or like when they drink or something. It's definitely better at resolving negative emotions and trauma than alcohol. But
Yeah. This is definitely a very interesting conversation today. I've never actually openly spoke about cannabis on my channel before. So yeah, I guess the cat is out of the bag. People know how I think about it now.
We love you all, no matter anyone's opinion.
Yeah. But do you guys have any last closing things that you would like to say to everyone watching today? Any messages that you feel are most important that we took away from today's conversation?
And we covered a lot. We were kind of all over the place. But yeah, I just want to tell people to keep watching the sun, because I think the sun is really important. I think we're getting downloads. I think that we're getting upgraded, whether we like it or not. I think there's a lot of good things happening. And, sometimes people are afraid of solar flares and the cosmic radiation. We're even getting radiation from other stars. There's other types of things that are actually coming to the earth to help and assist us, and as we go through this next phase. So yeah, so for that, always keep an open mind about everything. Don't be so, like, a lot of us get set in our ways. I know I did. One of the things I've learned is I have to just keep growing and expanding, because you keep on getting those special aha moments, like, wow, I never thought about that, or wow, now this connects to this, and now that makes perfect sense. So yeah, and I appreciate being able to be on your channel, Indigo, very much. And
yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's such a pleasure. I want to actually highlight your channel really quick. So let me just go to that to tell everyone to subscribe to Chris's channel. This is his channel here, Quantum Businessman. The universe is based on commerce.
Yes, like Palladians buying cannabis. Yeah, and I have this series of videos I'm working on called Symphony of Realities. And my latest thing is I'm putting together a set of videos about flipping the chessboard, I call it, waking people up to about all these secrets about how reality works.
Okay.
But yeah, I mostly got Mandela.
Or is there any videos here that is a must watch?
Boy, it depends what you're interested in. A lot of people are finding the video I have about, do you ever see like the pictures of the Anunnaki or different deities and they're holding what looks like a purse or like a handbag? A lot of people have wondered what that means. And sometimes they have like a big watch on their wrist in the hieroglyphs or, put into the stone monoliths. And, what is that? Some people say, oh, that maybe represented a bag of drugs or a bag of seeds. And then with the Akashic Records, oh yeah, Symphony on the right-hand side, Symphony of Realities, Act 7, Concepts, Scene 1, second row down all the way to the right. It's got like a lady holding a purse in front of her. And
this one here? Okay.
Yeah. So people might find that fun because I take things that happen, what I call soft disclosure, like elements of movies and so forth, to show how we've been taught what it is, but we just never connected all the dots, in my opinion, the way I see it. So was it a bag of drugs? I don't think so. Was it a bag of seeds? Could be, but I don't think so. But it was something else. A bag of cannabis. Maybe some of them have. Some of the Anunnaki were walking around with those, but I think there's a whole other.
Is Anki holding? That's the big question.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one that a lot of people have given me a lot of comments about because it's really expanded their consciousness because they bring science into it. So I'd probably say that one.
Okay, awesome. And then this is your website. So if people want to check out your website.
Yeah, it's very, very basic. I'll be adding more to it and different services and how you can, once you understand how the matrix works and what exactly is involved with that, like how you can be prosperous and how you can actually, not take advantage, but understand how it works. So I'm working on putting those different types of services together.
Okay, awesome. And Sean, do you have any last closing messages to our wonderful audience today?
Sure. And also want to get a little of the chat's interesting things if you had any comments on it. But and going into like the origins with Sirius A, it's when I track back DNA lineages that come from there, it's like garden world. It has like a bunch of different realms. Refugee adopts a bunch of species from other places that were fleeing from other worlds similar to Earth. So there's a bunch of stuff that would accumulate and then immigrate here, such as like Celtic mythos things, Japanese mythos things, things like lung dragons, Lord of the Rings type of things, with your gillyweed. So there's a lot of magical orientation around that planet, and so that then went into the collective that has to do with cannabis. So there's some interesting things to unlock with that, and the secret abilities that it can lock an individual and turn online and link them to past lives and altars and vision questing and all that. With the Palladian thing that you guys are reading, I read into that a little bit.
How do we get on to labeling the Palladians as the ones who are poking it up?
Those drug using no. So there's a lot of different types of Palladians, and so definitely can't be racist with that. But most of the users for cannabis in the Pleiades, I'm reading 90% are ones that are associated around the planet. So them having to deal with the earth is making them need to use cannabis. And there's like stories of them getting super emotionally overwhelmed when they come here and interact with us as a species. We're super dramatic. So can understand that is they may want to smoke a joint after that. And then I don't read that they usually smoke, or their preferred method seems to be like some interesting advanced technology that replicates the energetic frequency signature of different medicines and then relays it to them. And so they have like ones for cannabis, and they're tweaking that around with different combinations of things, and then they make a super medicine. And then if they want to use it for the high effect the rest of most of the percentage of them using it is for healing, and then sometimes for parties. And they're like, hey, there's this cool drug from Earth, let's try it. And then there's a thing that people can engage with, like I call it bodies, when they're engaged in operating system with their human DNA tech, such as like the light body, the dreaming body, the astral, all that. So cannabis body, let's say that as you're engaged with it, you can like monitor it, get look at how things are going, and upgrade it with each use. And the upgrades like build upon each other as you're like building a collective to learn from the ganja spirits and the ganja goddess to earn up the abilities that they have, and then have that in a physical body. With things people are saying in the chat, just to say that we didn't ignore you the whole time. Somebody said canine Anubis. That's canine Anubis, and people are saying like the Canis majors and stuff are involved. Yep, that's the Sirius system, but they're not the only beings that engage with it. There's a lot of different species that come from Sirius, such as the Canis. There are feline races. There's avian. There's humanoid. There's long skulls. There's giants. There's all this kind of stuff there, and dragons and magical stuff, like in the mythos I just said. People are asking about mushrooms, but we might not have to do that at this show. Yeah, and people saying they love the show, and thank you guys for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you for being here with us as well. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all your comments.
And I'll just plug my stuff, and then I'll ask for when we upload it on ours for you.
Yeah, I was going to show your channel really quick though. So this is your channel, Psionic League. So everybody go and subscribe to his channel, show him some love. And what else? Was there any video here like that you would recommend that they watch on your channel?
There's all kinds. I accumulate, besides interviews and of many different powerful individuals, I accumulate representations of superhuman abilities being done, soft disclosure, and like motivational things that like push people to a new level of energy and stuff. Of video magic. So yeah, feel free to go through that playlist, and when you guys go there, I'm also on sonicleague.com. There's a bunch of video procs there. I put up blueprints for abilities and how to learn them, and I do sessions and stuff, so feel free to get one. I also send clearings for those that need them, and I'm got well known for being able to heal targeted individuals. And
so these are your services here, 30 minutes, 2-hour consult.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a 2-hour consultation. Okay. Heal and resolve problems. Okay.
How about you?
How about me?
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't have mine pulled up. But you can find me at indigoangel222.com. I have all of my services listed, deep chakra clearings, J seal removals, Draco seal removals. I do.
Is it your site? You can pull that up. Feel free to take your time.
You want me to pull it up?
Yeah.
I can pull it up.
Yeah, Indigo has a beautiful new site.
I did, you guys. I just got my website redone. I'm so happy. It was so much work. It's just such a grueling thing to have to redo your website. I was not excited about having to do it, but it took about 2 weeks to get everything transferred over, and I'm just really happy with the outcome. You can go here to buy my book, How to Read Celestial Akashic Starseed Origins. I basically have a methodology for finding your starseed origins. I have my memberships, Patreon on Patreon. So if you clicked here, it would take you to my Patreon link, patreon.com/Indigo Angel. This takes you to my videos, to my YouTube channel. You can donate. And yeah, because like I said, we're all in full time. We're all fully invested. This is our life, so donations really, really help. I have my blog section, and yeah, I have my services. This is my chakra clearing. It's very, very in depth. It's about can last to 2 to 2.5. I've gone 3 hours with some people, where we systematically go into each dimensional field and just basically clean you out. And I ask a lot of questions. I like to really push people to dig deep. And so I think that's really important, is just clearing up the light body field and getting every single part of you self-actualized, self-reflected. The J seal removal. And we did a group J seal removal the other night in the group grid session that we did. Chris was with me for that. And it was really, what I realized right after that was that the actual crucifixion wound, like of Christ, it was underneath the Notre Dame temple in Paris, or in France. And so that kind of, all that information came to me right after we did that. So I thought that was really, really interesting. The Draco seal removal, my advanced avatar master practices. I have packages where you can get the starseed origin reading along with services, and one-on-one Zoom meeting consultation. So yeah, there's a lot there for sure. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming on today's show. It was so much fun. And hopefully we can do it again. And so I hope everyone watching had a good time with the 420 special. And namaste, take care.
Yeah, be responsible.
Be responsible, everyone. Exactly.